news around the world. Well, it's around the world of Columbia, of our listening area.
That's
and
right.
That's one of the things is all I try to do is kind of look through what else is being covered, what I'm picking up around there, what our listeners are picking up, and put it into a sense of context to let us all know what we the not the narrow cast that we get on the national television and radio news, but something a little bit broader that gives us a sense of the context of what we're living within this coming week. If you look at the national thing, it's just they'll pick one story, the Boston bomber or something,
and beat it to death,
and just run it into the ground, so that everything else that's going on you have no idea about.
They have done I must say a little note. Of course, the opinions expressed here are those of the of the speakers. Yeah. Listen, the broadcast news has been doing a horrible job over the last couple of weeks. It's right. I don't think there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah, there's really not much to pick up from there. I mean, the most interesting thing I saw, one of the most interesting things that caught my eye last week and caught the eye of everybody in the kind of the journalism business was I think it was I can't remember the name of the website at this point, but they've been doing a charting of job rankings for 25 different career paths, and for 200 different career paths. They've been doing this for 25 years, and dead last this year was newspaper reporting editing, and that was based on the ideas of job security and pay and the amount of stress involved. And what was really fascinating was that I was reading this as reported by newspaper reporters. So all of them are going, top of the list is actuary and accountants and the like, and, software engineers. They said, we do this for a reason. We feel involved, and we do feel, we are optimists.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that what we do in terms of just pulling together the news, reporting it, putting it into context, has an important function in our society, and that the stress of deadlines and just feedback, which can get we don't get as much on the radio, but you get letters, you get complaints, you get people screaming about things that you say,
mm-hmm.
or the worst is the kill the messenger mode, but that was interesting seeing that put into context last week. On a local level, it's we're in those. Everybody was outside this past weekend, from what I could see. It was a beautiful weekend. A lot of people working in gardens, either rototilling or doing the human rototiller act, which, as I said, I did some of that yesterday, and I'm feeling it today. Little League has pretty much started up all across the area at this point, and there's a lot of games going on. People are cleaning brush. They're not burning yet. We're in that weird in-between period where there's no burn until the middle of May for a few more weeks.
And I'll tell you something. You talk about a bonfire. I have a bonfire. I'm surrounded by these the worst of all maple trees. I forget what the name of it is, but the limbs just fall. They're all over the place.
Yep. Well, it's just remember that there's a reason there's no
that is correct.
bonfires right now, and there was a big back and forth on burn barrels and burn laws a few years ago around this region. It was as big as the Second Amendment around here, and everybody was, they wanted their right to be able to burn. And the reason that the state passed these laws was they had noticed over a period of time when the fires were happening, the wildfires, and the cost of those wildfires, and how many of them were started out of errant burn barrels or supposedly controlled burns. So just hold off for a few weeks.
And even when the burn season starts, check the weather report, because this is an area that gets windy because of where because of where some of us are situated.
Yeah.
And you can start a fire very easily. I'll tell you, we get wind gusts here 25, 30 miles an hour. So
and we have a
careful.
lot of ground cover that's dry that you don't
Yeah.
realize how dry it is. Even if it's rained the day before or it's a light sprinkle, it can still go up. Other thing this past, the first black bear sighting occurred over in Ankrum. I've heard of black bear sightings up on the mountaintop too. They're waking up. They live with us. Watch out. Treat them nice. Treat them well. The deer are all over the place. We went out and saw the daylilies chomped down, looking. Somebody had a good meal with those.
Just come over my way. It's whitetail country.
Yep. There's the season opener at the Thomas Cole House took place yesterday, and it's a great show of Albert Bierstadt paintings from the Northeast. Marvelous painter, and there's a really nice section on the stereoscopic photography work that he and his brother were doing at one point later in their career. You've also got greenhouses are opening up. The HomeQuest farm out on Spook Rock Road here in Greenport is has opened up its new greenhouse, or it's opening up on this coming Wednesday afternoon with a ribbon cutting. And then you've got that out on 9G as you come in off the Rip Van Winkle Bridge into Hudson. That's a beautiful nursery that they're opening up over there, and I'm not sure the exact date on that, but everyone's kind of looking forward to that. There was a big event kind of throughout the region this past weekend. It was a little bit quiet if you're not in those circles, but very important to the fabric of our communities, a thing called Recruit New York. And this is it's in its third year. It's an annual event established by the Firemen's Association of the State of New York. And, of course, FASNY, as they call themselves, plays a big role here in Hudson. They have their state home out on, I think it's Harry Howard Road, and also the Firemen's Museum, which is just a great thing. But Recruit New York was all throughout the area. Firehouses did an open house over the weekend. Most for Saturday. There were a few on Sunday, trying to recruit new volunteers. And it's those volunteers who work with our fire companies and with our ambulance crews that are just essential to rural life.
And they have a critical shortage right now.
Yep, and it's and there have been means of trying to amp up the reasons for volunteering beyond just the personal. There are new incentives in terms of retirement plans and insurance plans, et cetera. So just pay attention to your local fire departments, your emergency crews, and the like. That whole thing that's been going on around here, around the state, with parents choosing to opt out of the new state testing, the Common Core curriculum, as they call it, is continuing to amp up. There was a story in the Register Star this past week about how the number of students opting out of these new testing at Ichabod Crane Elementary and Middle School is up, went up from 135 to 202 in 1 week's time. And this is happening all over the place. Meanwhile, check out the letters especially to your weekly newspapers around here, and you'll notice an ongoing debate that's building up between those who feel that it's important to this new Common Core curriculum and kind of building up the idea of a basic competency within our student bodies, and those who feel that it's a little bit too much and we should go with the flow. But also that's the stuff that our station manager here, Lynn Sloniker, is that's her field.
Yeah, and we'll be discussing that a little later on this week.
Great. And then the other big thing was that most school districts, the petitions for school board candidacies all came due last week on, I believe it was Monday. Except for the City of Hudson. City of Hudson, for some reason, has its own rules, and theirs are due May 1st.
We're Hudson. Knock it off.
Yep. But, there's a lot of, we'll get into all the specifics at a later point, but, although most school districts, it'll be like, 3 candidates for 2 seats or 4 candidates for 3 seats where it's going to be pretty tight. There's a few areas where there are really contentious battles building up. In Carroll-Durham, for example, there's 2 incumbents and 3 newcomers vying for 3 open seats. Catskill, there's 4 people running for 1 seat. There's going to be some big races. The voting day is coming up in 3 weeks' time, and we'll fill in on those races over the coming weeks. I believe Carroll-Durham, WGXC, is going to be working with the League of Women Voters, and they're doing a Meet the Candidates event. It's coming up. It's either this Wednesday. I think it's the following Wednesday. But
that is going to be great.
Yep, and then looking to do one on this side of the river as well. Probably Ichabod Crane may be the place, but we'll be looking to see where the most contentious races over here. We're also seeing the beginning of the November political season is already starting up. Hey, it's April, so the Greene County had its legislative races last year, but all the town races are going on this year. And there's a few county races here in Columbia County. It's a Board of Supervisors, one of the last counties in the state of New York that still has a Board of Supervisors. And every town's having its board, town board and supervisor races. So a lot of things are going to hinge on this. Where you're seeing action already is in the Columbia County Sheriff's race, where there are now 2 candidates lined up. It still hasn't gone through the full caucus process, but we'll be paying attention to that lightly until we have a lot of time on that. And I kind of don't like it when races turn into get treated as sports events over a 6-month period.
Yeah, exactly. Like a playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing here in Hudson, we have actually somebody from within the WGXC programmers family has announced that he's running for president of the Common Council. That's Victor Mendolia, but I'm sure all of that's going to be talked about quite a bit in our morning and afternoon shows. There's a proposal out there here in Columbia County to allow these town supervisors on the county board of supervisors and a few other elected officials and county officials with pistol permits to be able to carry handguns on county property. And it seems to have hit a snag in the discussions on a county level. I don't know. This whole idea of allowing people to carry pistols around just is, we sometimes we do on a Saturday night. We'll do a family movie night. We watched Shane this past weekend, and Milo was like, "Did they, really carry guns all the time?" I said, "Well, they did," and it, I didn't want to say, "Well, we might be coming back to that," but.
Has there ever been anything ever happened in a council or supervisors meeting?
Nope.
Which someone's life would have been saved had they had a gun?
Not here. I mean, there's been court cases and a few things where there was something a few years back in one of the suburbs of St. Louis. There was something down at Atlanta a few years ago.
Correctional, there are court officers though. Trained.
Yeah. So it's just I won't go any farther into that.
Let's just leave that alone.
Farther. Speaking on kind of a similar front, on a tangential line. I was talking with one of the leaders of Red Cross for this whole region. Actually, I hadn't realized, but our region goes from Dutchess County and Ulster County all the way up to the Canadian border. It's like a 14 county region. And This is an interesting story that I'm just now starting to dive into, and anybody else with kind of a journalistic bent out there, it's something to look at, not just for its specifics in regards to the Red Cross and emergency services, but just the way we're thinking as a people these days. According to this manager at the Red Cross, a few years ago, like 2 years ago, the Red Cross realized that it was wasting an awful lot of money because all throughout the country, the Red Cross was organized on a county-by-county basis. And they realized on a national basis that they were replicating a lot of service or administrative services, not so much the services they do in the field, but administratively there was a lot of money being wasted. So they decided to reorganize everything on a regional basis across the country, closing down or minimizing their county offices. Well, I asked what happened as a result of that, and they said, well, they lost a lot of their volunteer bases, like a substantial amount of their volunteer bases, once they went from a county by county to a regional level. And now they're starting to, and the result of this was that during both Irene and Sandy, the Red Cross response wasn't as strong as it had been in the past, because they didn't have that local surge of support that they once had. So there's a lot of consideration going on a regional and state and national basis in the Red Cross and other such organizations, looking at whether inefficiency is more efficient in the long run when it comes to volunteer basis or just involvement. That there's only so far you can go in terms of dealing with things from a pure fiscal standpoint, and when you get into the world of community involvement and interaction, it's a whole different ball of wax. This is something that we've learned here at WGXC, working basically without money. Although we'll be coming around to another pledge drive soon, so hold on that.
Who needs money? We have love.
There's a new publisher over at the Register Star Daily Mail. Congratulations. He comes he was the head of circulation up at the Times Union in Albany, and just as an interesting side note, that's a good move. A lot of times people who rise up into the publishing class at publications and other media outlets come out of the sports end. It's amazing how many people have been coming out of the sports end, but I think that's over, and now they're coming out of circulation and the advertising side more. Of course, coming out of editorial, some of us look forward to that day when the journalism becomes editorial based again. There was a tractor trailer truck that flipped on its side on the Route 23 bypass over near Cairo last Friday, blocked traffic for quite a while. That's one of those things that had everybody talking in the neighborhood for a while. It took 3 wreckers to move the thing out. Nobody was hurt, but it sparked that community for a while. Here in Columbia County, there's a lot of questions being raised on the county level in regards to the Pine Haven Nursing and Rehabilitation Center, which is looking at a whole new campus here in Columbia County. But now the Board of Supervisors is worried that, hey, the price is too much. And again, you come back to what we were just referencing with the talk about the Red Cross. At what point does one's fiscal concerns start to back up against one's community concerns? And this is something that bounces out of our reaction to the economic downturn over the last 4 or 5 years. It's that wonderful pendulum swinging. There's also in Greene County on a similar front, there's a struggle right now over 911 funding. the county over there, county legislators have passed a resolution demanding that the state return 911 cell phone surcharges. You can tell that things are getting a little bit better when everybody's fighting over the little bits of money.
Exactly right.
Yeah, that's the same thing as when they start going after welfare cheats or somebody like you took out too many food stamps, and it's big problems. Over in Livingston on this side of the river, there's 80 people came out to a town hall meeting at the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Planning Board, where they're talking about a communications tower that seems to be in the viewshed of Olana. And there's a question, how far do you go in terms of kind of working towards this tourism and ecological dream versus people's sense of communications and community need, and it was pretty contentious from what we hear. There's also a whole thing in Greene County over in the Durham area where a couple people were arrested last week on for a string of burglaries. There were guns involved. Look at that one become a big story, especially in Greene County, maybe for the region, as it enters into the courts over the coming months. Finally, just an interesting thing coming out of Columbia County economic development. It looks like the New York Philharmonic, which has for years has had its summer home up at SPAC, the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, is scouting locations here in Columbia County for a new
That
home.
is very exciting.
That's
news.
very big news, and it's it of course it with Tanglewood over towards the east, it shifts the there'll be a certain shift towards the Taconic, and it might actually raise the profile of that roadway and everything along it. But let's wait and see on that. Kind of stepping back into the world of the past and what this date, April 29th, means. Big day of kind of iconic raids and conquests. It was on this day that the Islamic conquest of Hispania, that's Spain and Portugal, and kind of going up into Europe, occurred back in the year 711. They landed at Gibraltar, and the Moorish troops, and it's a major point of history that surprisingly is very current with a lot of people, especially in the Catholic Church these days. Speaking of that, this was also the day that Joan of Arc kind of made her name in 1429 by arriving to relieve the siege of Orleans. This was also the day that Francis Drake in 1587 made his name by sinking 23 ships of the Spanish fleet in the Bay of Cadiz in a pirate raid, at which point he shifted from being a pirate into being Sir Francis Drake. And kind of stepping forward a bit in 1910, I love this one. The Parliament of the United Kingdom passed the first people's budget, which was a national budget passed with the expressed intent of redistributing wealth among the British public. So, that's the progressive era at work. That's the sort of thing that drives certain pundits out there on the right completely crazy when you hear something like that.
Yeah, as soon as you said redistributing,
redistributing wealth. It's like it just shows that it's not a brand new crazy idea. That's very pre-Bolshevist if you go into it. It was also a very busy time in the kind of around the final years of the Vietnam War, etc. It was on this date in 1967 that Muhammad Ali was stripped of his boxing title for refusing to be inducted into the United States Army. He cited religious reasons. It was a day, on this date in 1968, the musical Hair first opened on Broadway.
Ah, those are good memories.
It was on this date in 1970 that Cambodia was invaded, kind of secretly at first, but once the news got out, it was a biggie. It was a biggie. And you probably recall that pretty well.
Yes, I do.
1974, this was when, during the Watergate scandal, that Nixon announced the release of his edited transcripts of White House tape recordings that he had been making. That was a biggie at the time. And in 1975, this was when the U.S. started to evacuate all its citizens from Saigon. And that's one of those... the end of the Vietnam War and those iconic images of helicopters toppling off the top of the embassy and everybody kind of skedaddling, and that's one of those moments that we're still battling over in many ways.
We are still haunted by it and will be.
In terms of kind of birthdays on this date, it was on this date 150 years ago that William Randolph Hearst was born, the Rupert Murdoch of his day.
That's correct.
And also the model for Orson Welles' Charles Foster Kane. So if you have a chance, watch Citizen Kane tonight. It's still pertinent. Also, I think you've referred to some of these. There's a lot of people in the musical world. Duke Ellington,
the Duke.
Celeste Holm, who passed away last year, the great actress and singer. One of my favorites, Tino Rossi, who's a French singer. If you have a chance, look him up on YouTube. He's great. The great blues guitarist and singer Otis Rush. Tammy Terrell, who did a lot of great recordings with Marvin Gaye and passed away way too young. Kind of broke his heart in many ways. Tommy James of Tommy James and the Shondells, and then also Klaus Vormann, he was a German artist and musician and producer, and who worked a lot with the Beatles. He did the cover for Revolver and played in Plastic Ono Band, etc. It's also the birthday of the English-Irish actor Daniel Day-Lewis, who has a strong connection to this area, lives in Connecticut, but is over in Dutchess County in the Woodstock area quite a bit. So that's our wrap-up for this last Monday in April.
The last, can you imagine that? May Day is coming up on Wednesday.
Yep, and there's still a lot. Look for something to be coming out of. I'm hearing there's going to be a lot of action down in the city on Wednesday, on May Day. That there's been a lot of rumblings from that old Occupy movement that there's going to be some actions going on.
If action is going to take place anywhere in the United States or the world,
it'll be New York.
It'll be in New York City.
Yes.
Guarantee you that. All right. Thank you, Paul Smart, bringing us up to date with the news and the birthdays. You mentioned Celeste Holm, and the song you said was All or Nothing.
Yes,
not All or Nothing. All or Nothing by Celeste Holmes. Thank you, Paul Smart.